Right. I think we're on. I can only apologise for that. I was just in the middle of one and my wife ran to the window and said there's someone here to see me. So all sorted. So we're going to pick up where we left off. Getting these 6-stroke roll check patterns happening. So we're at 100 BPM. The left hand is going all the time. So if you've just joined this, I would encourage you to get your pad. Play along as best you can. We're focusing on the left hand here, drawing out the clarity of these single strokes. Now I'm using a check pattern. Nearly 50 bars already. Really trying to focus on the clarity, as I keep saying. Bars. If this is fatiguing you, push through. We don't mind a bit of burn. Nearly there. And there's our 100. So what I was saying there, there's a little bit of fatigue. If there's a little bit of fatigue starting to set in, maybe you've got some fatigue up your forearm, in your thumb, in your bicep, fatigue is okay. If it's a little bit of muscle burn, it's okay. You're trying to actively release the tension as you get there. There comes a point where the brain, the nervous system, the muscles, your body, you need to understand what it feels like to play fast. And if the technique breaks down a little bit at that point, that's okay. We're not going to practice consistently too fast for ourselves, but there does come a point where we have to push it just to experience it and see what it feels like. With newer students, I often liken this to learning to drive. When you're a new driver, a very new driver, you drive on safe roads, you will drive in car parks and things like this, you will learn to start and stop in the relative safety of a quiet road. Sooner or later, you have to go on the roads. Sooner or later, you have to go on the motorway. And if you go on the motorway, you have to go at motorway speeds. You can't do 30 miles an hour on a motorway. It's dangerous. So you have to experience what it is like to play fast. And sometimes you've just got to push yourself a little bit. Now we're going to go back to 4/4 now. We're currently in 6/8. We're going to go into 4/4. And we're going to do the same sort of check pattern, but in groups of 4 instead. We'll start nice and steady at 76, so we can warm ourselves in. You can hear a second click there. That's the 8th note. I want to be playing 16th notes on my left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can start by just getting this somewhat comfortable, let the technique settle in. And then we're going to do 1 bar of the left on its own, 1 bar of the check pattern single strokes. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. And. So the single strokes are doing 30-second notes at 76 BPM. 3, 4. That left hand never stops. 3, 4. I'm trying to get it to feel the same whether the right hand plays or not. The transitions when talking are really tricky. Now I'm actually using my monitor to watch my own technique, trying to get the stick heights even, the angles of the sticks even. My left hand's actually slightly higher because I'm focusing on it. Bring that right hand up to meet it. Again, you're probably feeling a little bit of fatigue already. That's okay. I'll go to 50 bars. We're at 43. Nearly there. We'll do one more repetition. Now notice throughout all of this, I'm doing my best to remain relaxed, to remain calm, remain controlled with it. There's no sense of forcing this, of powering through. Now, obviously, I'm practicing at speeds that are comfortable for me. If this is proving a little bit fast for you, that's okay. Maybe slow it down in your own time. This is just to give you an insight into what I do and to invite you to do it with me. But sometimes there will be a mismatch in speeds if you're less comfortable with certain techniques, as there would be with me with some people using techniques I'm less comfortable with. But as I say, I'm trying to give you an insight into some of the ways I like to warm up and how I like to apply some of these concepts. Now, what I'm really focusing on, not just today, but in my practicing in general at the moment, is bringing out the finger control in my left hand. I've spent many, many years playing jazz on the drum kit, and that right hand has had a lot of experience in this position, in the French position, playing the jazz ride pattern. Really comfortable on the right hand, much less comfortable on the left hand. So what we're going to do now is embrace that discomfort, embrace that weakness, and we're going to directly address this left hand fulcrum. That lack of control is okay when I'm just playing straight strokes, but as soon as we start needing rhythms in there, you see the stick starting to weave all over the place. And that's a little bit of a lack of control somewhere in the fulcrum, somewhere in the motions. So what I'm going to do first of all is talk you through what I like to do in French position generally. And I would suggest that this doesn't matter whether you play French position or not. This is good for all techniques, at least insofar as the matched grip goes. I'm not really talking about traditional grip today. For anybody that plays in this sort of position in their left hand, spending a little bit of time with French position can be very, very beneficial. So what I'm going to do first of all is just let the stick's tip rest on the drum head, balanced over my index finger. And I'm not sure if you can see it from either of the angles here, but that stick is just on the first crease of my index finger. So it's not rolled right up, it's not in the knuckle, it's in the first crease just before the finger, the fingertip. I'm going to put my thumb over the top. Now this is the hard part. I'm going to lift the stick and set it bouncing using just my thumb as best as I can. No fingers, and crucially, no wrist. So we're not doing this. Whoops, we're not doing that. We're doing this. See, I'm trying to keep my wrists still and do it all with the thumb. Now, if you've never done this before, it's really, really hard. But this is to bring out the control in the fulcrum, the control in the thumb. The thumb's job here is to keep the stick still within the fulcrum. Now, ultimately, we're not going to use the thumb to produce the stroke, but this is developing the fulcrum itself. And then what I'm going to do is take the first crease of my other three fingers and attach them to the back of the stick. And now you can see the fulcrum here on my thumb is completely still, my wrist is completely still, and these fingers at the back are producing the strokes like a lever. Now this is precisely what French grip was designed for. We sometimes call it French timpani grip. It's used in timpani, on timpani percussion performances to get a roll, which uses the fingers. It is specifically designed to maximize the range of the fingers. I can do a massive stroke just from the fingers here. But of course, this relies on a strong fulcrum and good control in the fingers. You can see it from the side here. That wrist is barely moving. All of the work is coming from the fingers at the back, and my thumb is just keeping the stick in its position in the fulcrum in that first crease of the index finger. And then we can start to push it a little bit and see how far we can go. Now you have to be careful here because raw speed at this stage is not the goal. We can get that relatively fast. That's not so hard. Once you've got the basic technique, the speed comes quite easily. Less so with the left hand, but nevertheless, the speed is there. But what we're working on, what we are always working on, is the aspect of developing control. So I'm not so much interested in how fast I can do that. You know, I'm not playing blast beats. What I'm interested in is how well I can bring that speed to bear in the passages I'm playing and control the strokes. So what I'm going to do is go back to 6/8, and we're going to do that same check pattern from earlier where the left hand is maintaining the 8th note beat and the right hand is going to join in, and we're going to get a sense for what it feels like to utilize the French position to form this single stroke roll. And this is all to do with the idea of developing control in the fulcrum, in the thumb and the fingers. We'll start back down here at 8T. Now this might be comfortable for you, or it might not. If it's not comfortable for you, it's highlighting weaknesses. And that's me trying to talk again. It's highlighting weaknesses, and that's a good thing. We need to know where our weaknesses are so we can address them. Now notice there's no tension here, there's no effort, it's all control, mostly. Now I would never play like this, I would never perform like this. And even already, I can feel that left hand, the stick is moving in the fulcrum, it's starting to move and my hand is starting to have to adjust to compensate for that. That's precisely why we're working on this. Half of this is experimentation. Now I'm finding here, if my thumb is not in the right place, that stick wants to slip up through the hands and my hands are having to adjust. My right hand is rock solid, never moves. I'm starting to feel that left hand, the fulcrum is a little bit weak, so it's slipping away from me. I'm always trying to make these micro corrections as I go. You know when you've got it right, because it's effortless. There's no tension, no need to adjust. But if we could do it like that all the time, we wouldn't need to practice. I obviously need to practice talking while I'm playing. Okay, we're going to change this exercise slightly now, and this is focusing more on the control than the speed once again. I'm going to change the check pattern. So rather than doing all 6/8 notes of the first bar on the left hand, we're going to do an 8th note single stroke roll. And that sounds easier because it's splitting the workload between the two hands, but at least for me, it puts a lot more onus on the control of the stroke, something that just isn't quite there with the left hand French position. So here's what we're going for. Here's the pattern. alternating every stroke now. Hitting those sticks together is a sign of focus lapsing. Now I'm aiming for uniformity. Okay. Let's pick that up a little bit now. We're at 100 BPM, still in 6/8. Same pattern as before, alternating 8th notes into 16th notes. Now, one thing you might find if you're a little bit less comfortable with this is as you're practicing this, your body will start to do things to compensate for the lack of control. This usually manifests in one of two ways. It usually manifests as tension, so you will be squeezing somewhere, your forearm will be tense, your bicep will be tense, or it involves pulling into your body. So you might find if you're like me with a weaker left hand, you might find your left hand just starts to tuck in here, and this starts to happen. What I'm trying to do, I'm often looking down at myself from above, trying to make sure the angle of my arms, the angle of my hands, the angle of the sticks remains constant. And that's not because we need some perfect textbook technique. It's because we don't want to rely on any of these physical devices to compensate for a lack of control. Everything we're doing here is to draw out control. So that's a lack of control because the fingers are not controlling the stick vertically. You see that? I'm exaggerating now, but that happens a little bit. We're trying to make everything nice and controlled because control breeds speed, right? So really pay attention to yourself. This is what deliberate practice is all about. It's not just mindless repetition. I'm looking out the window, counting the hours until I'm ready to finish. I'm being very mindful of my body, of where my focus is, of everything I'm doing, and trying to make these micro adjustments. So this might take the form of paying attention to where my arms are relative to my body. As I said, there's a tendency for this left arm or your non-dominant arm to pull in. There's a tendency to tense. There's a tendency for the biceps to get involved when they really don't need to. All of the control and all of the speed and power we need is coming from the hands in this position. I'm just going to push the speed a little bit further so you can start to see how this materializes. As I've said all along, speed is not the issue, speed is not the goal. We're aiming for control, and once we've got that control, the speed will be arbitrary. Pushing to 120 now. That's a really interesting one to practice because I feel the speed really comfortably. I can play faster than that if I need to, but I don't feel completely in control at that speed. So it's a little bit like I'm not in control of the speed's leading me. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel like I've got complete control of these sticks so that I can play the way I want to play. Now, just before we move on to something else, I'm going to show you one of my favorite warm-up exercises, and this is I'm going to demonstrate it with single strokes to stick with the theme of what we're doing today, but you can do this with double strokes and paradiddles and any other pattern you want to practice. But I find this approach really beneficial for a number of reasons. Now, what I use for this is a metronome that can count bars. So I've got my metronome down on my desk here. It's an iPad app called Polynome, which I endorse, and I helped give feedback to the developer. It's a really powerful metronome. But like many metronome apps, it has a bar counter. So I can set it to a certain number of bars, 100 bars or something like that. And I can use that in my practicing. So what I'm going to do is set my metronome to 4/4. We'll go 80, let's go 84 BPM. We're aiming for 100, but we'll not get there today. And 100 bars. Now, you may have a metronome that can do this, you may not. If you don't, you just have to count mentally. But the idea is we're going to start at 16th notes, and we're going to do 20 bars as 16th notes, single strokes. At bar 41, we're going to go to quintuplets. At bar 61, we're going to go to sextuplets. At bar 8, 20, 40. No, at bar 21, we're going to go to quintuplets. At bar 41, sextuplets. At bar 61, septuplets. And at bar 81, 32nd notes. So for 20 bars per subdivision, we're going to slowly work our way up the rhythmic ladder. And we're going to do all of these without stopping. So at bar 21, we transition, hopefully, smoothly from 16th notes to quintuplets, and then at bar 41 41 we transition smoothly from quintuplets to sextuplets. Now I'm going to do this left hand lead once again, so my left hand is on the beat. You can do this in French position, but I'm not going to today. I'm going to revert to my normal position now, which is palms down, thumbs facing each other. I like to play completely flat, giving me complete control from above of these sticks. And this is the method I probably use the most in terms of warming up and isolated exercises. So it sounds like this. So I've just set myself a 1 bar count in there. So the first bar will be a count in, and then 20 bars of 16ths, 20 bars of quintuplets, and so on. Feel free to practice along with me. Just needed to disable the 8th note. 3E under, 4E under. Lulls us into a false sense of security. All the same things apply. Control. No compensatory movements, tensing or anything like that. Left hand on the beat. Left, 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 left. This is also really good for your internal knowledge of subdivisions. Switching to the 5 straight away, as I'm about to, really tests how well you know the quintuplet. 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, change. And there's our 5s. Left, right, left, right. I find this quite meditative. That's halfway. As we move up, the fingers will do more and the wrists will do less. 4 bars. Going to go to sextuplets now, groups of 6. 1, 2, 3, change. Left, 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 left. Just relaxing my muscles. My bicep on my left hand was tensing, trying to compensate as it feels control slip away. Halfway. Going to go up to sevens in a moment. Which can be quite tricky if you're not used to it. 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, left, right, left, right. Consciously trying to relax. And that's halfway. I'm going to go up to 30-second notes in a moment and push through to the end. Left hand on the beat still when we go to the 30-second notes. 2 bars. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eight bars to go. Two more. And there's 100 bars. Now, if you were doing that with me, you might feel the same as me. Your hands are throbbing a little bit. You've got blood flow. You can really feel you're warmed up here. And when I say throbbing, I don't mean because I've been gripping and holding on for dear life, but I can just feel those hands have been working. I feel they've been used. The muscles know they're warm now. Their blood's flowing. Everything's starting to happen really nicely. And for me, because I'm spending this in the previous aborted episode working on my weaker left hand, especially in terms of single strokes, I'm feeling a little bit of fatigue in this fleshy part of my thumb here because that fulcrum is really working hard to try to keep up with my right hand. Now, I don't know if you noticed there, when I was playing the 30-second notes at the end, my right hand, completely effortless. It's staying flat. The wrist is doing the bare minimum. The fingers are closing. I could probably do that all day. On the left hand, it's okay on its own in short bursts, but when I start to bring that in, especially after doing 80 bars of the previous subdivisions, you can see it's working harder. You can see it's really having to work harder to keep up with that right hand. There's a little bit more wrist movement, and I can feel this bicep here wanting to tense to compensate for that slight lack of control it can detect. So even though I was able to keep up with the speed relatively comfortably, it's those little nuances that we really want to pay attention to, because the one thing you have to remember is that all of these little errors, all of these little inconsistencies, they expand and they are magnified as you get faster. So if we did that again, that was at 84 BPM. If I tried that at 94, that would become even more pronounced. You'd probably see this left hand starting to come inwards like this, come closer in, because it's going, I don't have the control to maintain this. I need some help. So the other muscles get involved. So we're not aiming for that speed. We're aiming to try to really equalize. We're trying to play with symmetry And it really doesn't matter if in order to do that, you're down at this sort of speed or here. Doesn't matter at all. Now, I'm going to move on. One of the other things I'm working on at the moment in preparation for some snare drum recordings over the next few months, I've always had a little bit of a weakness in my 7-stroke rolls that begin with the left hand. Many of the 7-stroke rolls in the traditional repertoire begin with the left hand. They play on a triplet subdivision, triple and. And you can see they start with a left hand double and conclude with a right hand accent. And once again, I don't have any trouble with the speed, but there is always this reluctance in the left hand to start the roll cleanly. Now let's see, I've got the metronome, I'm in 2/4 here, 76. Yeah, that's about right. So the first beat of the bar is going to be the roll, and the second beat of the bar is going to be the accent. So I first need to make sure I'm comfortable feeling that triplet. Triplet and. Triplet and. There's the figure. And then we're going to double that. In fact, let me just so a few more people can join in if you're doing this along with me at home. That's what we're aiming for. I'm at 68 here. Nice and steady. Now I know that's not slow, but we can comfortably double this in the long run. So we don't want to go much slower than this or we start to lose the form. Triple and. Triple and. This is the traditional form of the 7-stroke roll. Takes up an 8th note triplet, although I'm halving that at the moment, or doubling that, however you want to think about it. Watch the stick heights, trying to get that left hand open as much as I can to draw out the fingers. I don't want to be doing any of this with just wrists, certainly not from the elbow. I see a lot of students playing from here. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be playing from this rotation, vertical rotation, pivoting. Here, you can see from the side view, I want the back of that stick away from my hand. Notice I always start and finish in a down position. So my first movement is always up to open the fingers. Watch here. If the stick's not moving upwards, the fingers aren't opening. And if the fingers aren't open, they can't produce the stroke. Just do a few more. Let's do 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's push it a little bit now. That was 68. Let's try 80 and see what that feels like. As I say, we can comfortably get this a lot faster, but we're not aiming for speed, we're aiming for clarity and control. Here's 80. Triple and. Triple and. And there's our roll. Notice this up at the beginning. My first movement is up to open those fingers. That's crucial to get the clarity on the first double. few more. Starting to ease into it now. All of that warming up helped. One more. Okay. Oops. I'm really going to start to push it now. We're up at 100 BPM, triplet and, triplet and. Tension creeping in. Notice my eyes are always down at my sticks. If I were at the music stand, I've got a mirror opposite, or I can use my monitor over here. What I want to avoid is that starting to happen, or something like that, or something like that. We're aiming for equality across the hands. That's the whole point of this. Now this is all, like they say in boxing, for body shots, money in the bank. We're not going to see the benefits of this today, but if we do this consistently, the benefits will be massive. The problem is most people don't do it consistently. If you're joining in with me today, do this again tomorrow. Don't leave it 2 days, because you'll lose the progress. Reinforce it. Nearly 100 bars here. We're flying now. I'm really going to push it after this one. So I hope you're warmed up. And there's our 100. $140. See even more pronounced now, this up motion to begin with. I need those fingers, I need those fingers open to begin the roll. Really interesting point here. Talking about being mindful of your body, I've noticed when I'm doing something that's starting to tax me, and this isn't easy, it is taxing me, my left toes had all curled. They were all tense, like I was clinging onto a ledge. So once I noticed that, just let those toes relax. Sometimes I used to clench my jaw. I don't want any tension anywhere. So 112 bars so far. It flies when you're concentrating. I'm starting to rush now, getting a bit sloppy. Trying to bring it back under my control again. At this speed, it starts to sound like one word. Because that's ultimately what we're doing. We're producing a sound. And we need to be aware of what that sound sounds like. relatively happy with the clarity of the rolls. May as well go to 200 now. We're at 185. Only taken us 3 minutes to do 200 repetitions. And there's 200. Now, if you're following along at home, if that was a little bit fast, that's okay. This is supposed to be difficult. We are supposed to be pushing ourselves. I think you need to push back against the idea that practice should always be easy. There is an outdated convention that says to students, you must always practice slowly with perfect technique. And there is a place for that. That's deliberate, it's mindful, it's working on control. But there is a great British drummer called Pete Riley. Some of you may know him as the drummer from the Aristocrats. No, not the Aristocrats, as playing with Guthrie Govan's band. Aristocrats was Marco Miniman, I think. Anyway, yeah, Pete Riley played with Guthrie Govan in Guthrie Govan's Fusion project. It's a wonderful British drummer, great player, great teacher. And I remember years ago going to study with him down in London somewhere. And we were talking about speed. And he said, you don't get faster at sprinting by walking. You don't get faster at sprinting by practicing marathons. You get faster at sprinting by sprinting. And this was mirrored many years later by something Rick Dior said to me. If there are any of you who have seen my channel before or who have read any of my books know what an admirer I am of Rick Dior. These are Rick Dior custom drumsticks. And I was once telling him about one of my friends who practiced double strokes extremely slowly all the time, really focusing on this idea of perfect technique, perfect motion, perfect control at very, very slow-mo speeds, and never ever practiced fast, with this view that eventually he will develop the perfect control needed to play fast. And Rick Dior, great straight talker, which I really, really admire about him. He said, yeah, but can he play fast? And I said, no, not in the terms that we were discussing. I mean, if any of you have seen Rick Dior, he's one of the finest players in the world. He can play anything. I've seen him. He's wonderful and it's effortless. And he said, can he play fast? And I said, not in the realms we're talking about. And he said, well, there you go. There is a limit to what slow practice can do. And sometimes you have to push. And one of the things he got me doing, this was my weakness, was utilizing the fulcrum to be able to strongly produce a diddle. A diddle is an individual instance of a double stroke. So he would get me practicing single strokes like this. And then I would imagine any simple accent pattern and I would play the accents as diddles. Now to slow that down so you can see what I'm doing there, these are the single strokes. When I play the accent, I play two on a hand. And that probably did more than anything to help me understand the mechanics behind double strokes and the nature of strength, the nature of control, the nature of speed. Now, I'm not the fastest player in the world, but I have performed things that require very, very fast double strokes. You can see them elsewhere on my channel. And I didn't get that speed by practicing slowly. I developed control, I developed the motion by practicing slowly, but those extra BPM where I'm really out of my comfort zone, you're pushing. You have to push. Don't be afraid to push from time to time. So if I go a little bit faster now, what are we on? 140. If I'm at 150 here, and if I manage to do this, please understand it's not comfortable. It's not easy. But I'm trying my hardest to make it feel easy. I'm trying to hone in on any areas of tension, discomfort, while still trying to maintain something that sounds like a roll. I'm still trying to maintain that phrase. Da la, da la, da la, da la. before, that first movement is up, open. If the fingers aren't working, you're not going to get the stroke. You're not going to get the clarity. The fingers are key. All right. Here's 180. This might be a stretch now. Camera's died. I'd better talk to you all down here. That's going to be a natural end to it, I think. My DSLR camera over there has just died. Given up the ghost. So I will leave that there for today. Apologies, you're only seeing me tucked away in the corner here. I think that's as good a place as any to end. As I said at the start of either this one or the first one I tried, this is me trialing out a new format. If you enjoy this, please let me know. I'd be looking to do these on a weekly basis, probably a Monday lunchtime, a Monday morning, something like that. And turn it into a regular series where I share what I'm practicing and how I'm doing it. So if you would like to see more of these, please do let me know. In either case, thank you for joining me. I hope this has been helpful for you. You can find out everything about me and my work at www.jonathancurtis.co.uk for publications, tuitions, performance, and all the rest of it. Many thanks. Good luck to you all, and I'll see you next time.